Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. I'm Raffi, as always, joined by David and Theodore. We got the whole squad on this edition. Maybe we'll have Carlos soon, potentially. Hint, hint. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. Maybe next week, even. Boys, Week 18 is here in the NFL. I still don't like seeing 18 weeks. I'm old school. I still think 17 weeks was just enough, but money, so it is what it is. That's going down right now. Currently, the Steelers just beat the Baltimore Ravens as we're recording this, so then we'll give some predictions later on to not spoil the entire show. But before we get into any of that, how are you guys? I hope you had a great New Year's, great Christmas, great
It's a new
holiday
year.
season.
I mean, it's a new year. New things, new big things, Raffi crying over here because Connor Bedard's out for,
Out 4 to
amount of
6
time.
weeks probably. Davian, I don't want to hear it. The Blackhawks, I've never seen anything like this before. 8 of the top 9 forwards the Blackhawks went into the season with are on injured reserve or not on the team at this point. I've never seen anything like this before. This is to people listening who have never watched hockey. First off, watch hockey. Second off, this is like the Niners last year where every quarterback got injured, or 2 years ago with the Ravens where literally everyone was getting injured. Yeah. I've never seen anything like this before. When the Blackhawks were already a bottom 3, bottom 5 team in the league, they're essentially playing an AHL roster right now, which is like the minor league team for also those who don't watch hockey. But yeah. It's rough right now. I wanted to see Connor Bedard before I went back to school. That, unfortunately, hopefully I can see him in March, but we'll see. It's not fun. But you know what? I'm officially on the Devils hate wagon now. I'm hopping it on with you guys. I have my Rangers jersey in the closet, so go Rangers, except that I want Jacob Trouba to hoist the Stanley Cup. So that'll only go so far.
Theodore, are you okay? I mean,
not really.
Theodore, I'm sorry, but what was the idea behind that fourth and goal? Like, okay. I don't want you to relive your trauma here, but
Theodore's gonna justify Warden Savior Nick Saban's decision making.
Right? Well, okay, no, it's Tommy Rees who made the call, and that man should not be the offensive coordinator. I mean, I am in favor of firing him, which sadly won't happen. But for the play, wasn't as hideous as it should have been. Seth McLaughlin, our legendary center, who will now be playing for the Ohio State University. So I'm
just
sure
transferred.
All those Big Ten fans will get to witness the greatness of Seth McLaughlin. But he's, first of all, sabotaged just all year. You know, he's the reason that we had to attempt to play from 4th and 31 to beat Auburn. But the idea was, and if you look at the blocking, you'll see like what the design was. It was for Milroe to take that snap basically on the run and just immediately start going left. And, you know, he had the option to pitch to McClellan. He, in all likelihood, was not going to do it. And his massive, strong, fast, physical frame was almost definitely going to end up in the end zone there. The problem is he lost a full step and a half or even 2 steps because of how bad that snap was. I mean, the fact that he's got to pause and then take the ball, and then, look, Milroe is not a great reactive quarterback, and that's one of the things he has to work on. So, you know, you would have hoped that after getting the bad snap, he would have been able to look and try and see for something else instead of just running straight into a wall, but he shouldn't have had to, because you should, as a center whose job is to get the QB the ball, you should be able to get the QB the ball. And quite frankly, you know, we should have won that game in regulation, but the game should have gone to double overtime also because he would have made that play. So I'm very upset. I'm also very upset about everything that's going on with players declaring. People are saying that Saban told Roydell Williams and Terry and Arnold to both declare for the draft, which kind of sucks because we thought they were coming back. So, yeah, it's rough. Like, we're losing so much talent, but we also have so much talent coming back up. So, very upset.
That's completely fair. I mean, I think that – I mean, look, it's still Bama. They'll still be back next year. You know, the question will be, you know, is Milroe – Milroe will still need to continue to prove himself. Is Milroe really –
Milroe will be a Heisman finalist next year.
I think he proved himself, though. Like, let's be honest here, and Theodore, you are the case study here. from the start of the season to the end of the year, Jalen Milroe has really taken some steps. He isn't ultra elite Heisman candidate this year, like contending with Jane Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., Davian. But he's developed and taken big steps the entire season. And this is a guy who, he could potentially take a step next year. He's great with his legs. Obviously, the throwing needs a little bit of work. My big thing, too, was from that, at least that call and just in general, the one thing Michigan had going was their defensive line. Michigan was winning the battle in the trenches the entire game when it came to their defensive line versus Alabama's offensive line.
And
Theodore, you mentioned it earlier, and then you kept saying it throughout the season. Bama's O-line, that was their downfall at the end. But continue.
Yeah. And let me jump right. Then that's why it's a horrible play call by Tommy Rees.
Right.
Yeah.
You know that the one thing that's been killing you all game is your line. So why are you running a play that relies on the line? It's just, it's horrible situational awareness. And you look at the whole game, like, where were the bootlegs? It's one of the most fundamental things about college football right now, and it's where Milroe's at his best, and we just did not move him around enough, And on the drives where we didn't move him around, we had a lot of success. So me and my friend, we went to the game. I flew out to LA to stay with him, and we were just there, in a stadium that was about 80% Michigan fans, and we were definitely getting very upset about the play calls, as was everyone watching on TV.
And Michigan fans are everywhere too. So you think Alabama has a big fan base? It does not matter where you go.
Look, I was on vacation, right? And in the Caribbean, and I'm looking left and right. And everyone's wearing a Michigan shirt. I'm like, it's just strange. I mean, when I quick side story. When I visited Michigan, they're like, because I was potentially thinking of taking my talents to Michigan. Before I took my talents to Cornell, they were saying our alumni are crazy. You'll see somebody in the airport that will all of a sudden chant "Go Blue." But speaking of "Go Blue," I personally think that the national champion will be singing "Mr. Brightside" and shall be chanting, "It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine." Raffi, what's your pick?
So, okay. First, I'm going to give you guys a non-answer, and I'm going to give you guys my answer, and then my reason why my answer is wrong. So first off, my non-answer here. I think we all can agree that this game is going to come down to Washington's offense versus Michigan's defense. Michigan's defense, arguably one of the top defenses in the country. Can they stop Michael Penix Jr.? Can they stop Dylan Johnson? I haven't seen anything that he won't be playing. Obviously, he got dinged up towards the end of the Texas game, in which Washington was trying to lose the game at the end. It was my Falcons senses were tingling there. It was I don't even want to get into that because that's going to be a whole too long tangent of how Washington literally tried handing that game to Texas. They got bailed out at the end. But then you have Jalen McMillan, Ronald Odunze, two highly touted wide receivers for this upcoming draft. It is going to come down to Washington's offense versus Michigan's defense. If it's a high-scoring game, Washington's going to win and have the edge. If it's a low-scoring game, Michigan likely has the edge in that game. They just can ground and pound away. And I think Washington's defense is pretty underrated. So there's my non-answer. It's essentially going to be, if the high-scoring game, it's Washington, low-scoring game, Michigan. My prediction is Washington. So what does that mean? Well, by proxy, Michigan's going to win this game. And also, I picked Michigan at the start of the year too. So it's a win-win for me.
I did too. Let it be known for the record. I picked Michigan. Let it just be known, all right? 2 years ago, I picked Oregon to win the Big 12. What did I say? I don't even remember what I said.
Yeah, you had Oregon winning the Big 12 and the Pac-12.
Yes. All I'm saying, though, now is I'm getting there, guys. College football-wise, I'm starting to know my stuff.
We can also spin it that Davian predicted that there was going to be realignment within the Power 5. So by that comment, Davian definitely had some insight.
Yeah, I was miles ahead, guys. I was just there.
Only said Big 10 instead of Big 12.
Yeah.
Theodore, what do you have?
Let me give you my answer. Penix has been counted out all year, all his whole career. First of all, this man got obliterated for 3 seasons in Indiana. It was an Andrew Luck level injury track. I think he tore his ACL twice. He separated his shoulder. But when he was on the field, he managed to go out and he managed to absolutely wreck a very bad 2020 Michigan team, but still a Jim Harbaugh Michigan team. And some of you may recall, I think it was a 31-10 final score. He has Harbaugh's number, and yes, it's 3 years later, and yes, he's at a different school. But you look at what he's done all year. He has been the best player in college football this season. He should have won the Heisman, I'm going to say right now. I think that Daniels was great. I think that he did a lot of awesome stuff. But I think that Penix was absolutely the guy who should have won the Heisman. You look at what he did head-to-head as underdogs against Bo Nix twice.
Yeah.
2 wins. Yeah. I think that this is a very good Michigan team. I think that they have one of the best defensive lines that I've seen out of a Big Ten team ever. They are built the right way. McCarthy is not a great player, but he is a very, very capable quarterback. Blake Corum is the best running back in football right now, in college football. But Michael Penix is the X factor. He's going to deliver in a massive way. You look at what he did against Texas, even though they almost sold at the very end. And I do want to go back to the very end because you look, at that Washington defense, which really does not get talked about a lot. But in the big moments all year, when they need a stop against Oregon, or when Washington State is knocking on the door late and they need to avoid the upset, or when Quinn Ewers is in the red zone trying to send his team to the national championship, that defense steps up.
I just want to mention too, sorry, just to chime in real quick, but that was a big talking point for a lot of people and a lot of analysts is that, Washington gets in one-score games, they keep barely winning. And although that's definitely a valid argument, you can say that for a lot of teams. I've used that to call the Vikings frauds. Last year, we saw how that went. Theodore is now reminiscing in the good days for the Giants, which was 1 year, but that's for another day. Okay. It also, to win those one-score games and to just do it as consistently as Washington has done, as you just said, Theodore, that speaks volumes about when the lights are the brightest, at the most important moments where you need a play from either the offense or the defense, they step up. And I think that's a great point.
I want to, sorry, go ahead, Theodore.
Yeah, just to wrap up what I was saying, I think that this is almost definitely going to be a one-score game. I think it could very easily go either way. But I really do like Washington to come on top. And a very high-scoring game will probably be very similar to the 37-31 game we saw a couple nights ago. But I think that it will be the Huskies lifting the title.
I think that it's all going to come down to the run game. And I think that Michigan's run game has so far been fairly unstoppable. And I think that if Washington struggles to stop their run, then I think that the Michigan's offense just explodes to the point where the defense, if they make even one stop against Penix, I said correctly. I just don't see really. I don't see Washington coming out on top. So I'm gonna pick Michigan because people have been writing off JJ McCarthy, and I'm on the hype train. And I will say he is the greatest Michigan college quarterback. Not, Tom Brady's still the best QB to come out of Michigan, but he's the greatest Michigan quarterback. That is without saying. But speaking about great quarterbacks, let's talk about.
I just want to add one more thing. So sorry, before we change subjects, and I'll give you the transition again. If it gets into a running for Michigan versus passing with Washington, that I feel like that favors Washington just a bit more because running the ball takes more time off the clock, yes, but if Washington can just run and gun and just keep scoring through the air and Michigan can't do anything, it means that Michigan's going to be speeding up too. But that's all I have to say. Davian, as you were saying.
All right, so speaking about great quarterbacks like Tom Brady, let's talk about some great and not so great teams in the NFL. This is a wild Week 18. Most Week 18s, it's like whatever. It's like last week of the season. It's like there's not much really up in the air. Fantasy football is mostly over. By the way, if you play Week 18 fantasy football, you're a bum. Even though I am one of those bums. But still, let's talk about the AFC because there are some crazy scenarios. The Dolphins could be in the playoffs. Bills.
Real quick, before you proceed, I just want to say, and this goes back to what Raffi said at the beginning of the show, first of all, about him not being a fan of the 18th week, and then you saying week 18s have been kind of not great. You look at the past few week 18s in the NFL, because this is, I believe, the third year of the 17-game season.
Third year, yeah.
The best thing the NFL has done in a long time is adding the 17th game and adding the extra playoff spot. Because these week 18 games every year are absolutely chaos. Because I remember, like you said, the regular week 17, that being the final week of the season, a lot of times they were 90% boring games that didn't matter. This year, as you're about to go into, absolute chaos. Couple years before have had a lot of chaos, and I'm sure going forward, we are going to have more and more fun, down to the wire, clinching scenarios. So, Roger Goodell, I salute you for once, because he really has just reinvigorated the final week of the NFL season, even though there is no fantasy football.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, too, money. So
money
talks. I don't think Roger Goodell, and if you are, hello, Mr. Goodell, I'm very happy you decided to tune into this podcast for some reason. But I don't think he's watching this podcast, listening to what Davian and I have to say about we don't like week 18 in fantasy football. And then he's going to be like, you know what? They have some great points. Obviously, the millions of dollars that the NFL is making with week 18, I think speaks a bit more loudly than two schmucks. Respectfully, schmucks talking on the podcast. But let's get into it. David, you mentioned the AFC. We'll get into it. The Steelers, as we recorded this podcast, just beat the Ravens. So the Steelers, now things look kind of good for them. They still need some work to happen, some magic to happen for them to get into the playoffs. So some of those things involve the Jaguars losing versus the Titans tomorrow, as we're recording this on Saturday. They also need the Steelers need the Jaguars to lose, or they need the Bills to lose to get in. So do you guys think that's going to happen? Do you think either of those are going to go the Steelers' way and put them in the playoffs, where we're all going to have to watch the Steelers' offense go up against some random team? I don't want to watch. And TJ Watt's hurt too.
Yeah,
this is just like 2 years ago when they got smoked by Kansas City in the wild card. So you're over 500 though, Mike Tomlin. So congrats.
Let me say this: I just see everyone left and right trashing the Steelers. I just don't get it, You don't understand how many fan bases would kill for the sustained success that Pittsburgh has had. The fact that this man, who has been coaching since I was 1 year old, basically my entire life, has never had a losing season. Do you guys realize just how incredible that is? Davian, you saw your Patriots go through winning season after winning season your whole life, and now you see them in a total rebuild. I'm sure I don't have to ask you which one you enjoyed more. I have to say something here, because why are we still trashing on Mike Tomlin for the winning season thing?
I think this is one of those things where you look at it, because this is a conversation that also gets discussed too, where it's the Blackhawks versus the Bruins. Would you rather have 3 Stanley Cups in a 6-7 year span of just being very competitive, winning 3 Stanley Cups, or would you rather be the Bruins, where you have this long tenure of success, but you only have 1 Stanley Cup to show for?
As they should.
Also
well,
so
okay,
yeah,
so
you're right. I appreciate you mentioning Mike Tomlin, because I was just going to continue dogging on the Steelers.
Yeah, my thing there, not to harp on this for too long, is I don't think that a rebuild would do much good for Pittsburgh, because I think they rely so heavily on this culture of consistently winning. You look at this franchise's history going back to, I think they hired Noel in 1969, and that's been 3 coaches since, the 3 coaches in 55 years, Any time that they've had to rebuild during that stretch, it basically marked the end of a coach's reign, So this is a franchise that doesn't like to rebuild, and they have a ton of Super Bowls to show for it. I don't know that a rebuild would do them much good right now. That's a quick point. My second point on Pittsburgh is Mason Rudolph is an awesome story.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Who has been this is 6th year on the team. He hasn't started a game, I don't think, since either 2020 or 2021, but we've all heard his name time and time again because he's just always been there. He's never complained. He's never asked for anything. He's continued to work, because he was an absolute scrub when we first saw him play NFL football. And now he is a very serviceable quarterback. He knows the system. The players love him. He's an awesome story. And, just, I don't know, to see guys to see the other backups who are stepping up get so much love while he just seems to be viewed as a laughingstock just doesn't sit right with me. Look, are the Steelers a boring team? Yes. But they just won. They finished the year 10-7. And I think they're going to get the help they need to make the playoffs. I think we'll see Pittsburgh playing more football. I don't know how many more games, but I think we'll definitely see them in. And that is because the Buffalo Bills are going to lose to the Dolphins. It's going to happen.
I have the Steelers getting in, but I have the other way instead. I have the Bills beating the Dolphins, but I have the Jaguars losing to the Titans.
No.
The Titans can play spoiler. Let's be honest here, guys. The Jaguars have arguably been one of the more disappointing teams this year. The offense,
have they?
we've kept saying and kept waiting for their offense.
But they keep getting
really
injured.
They have, and that's the thing that keeps stunting any progression, any momentum for this team. I don't think they've been playing particularly well the past couple of weeks, so I think the Titans are gonna beat the Jaguars, and the Jaguars out of the playoffs.
I think that.
No.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah. All right. Look, we talked about somebody who's underhyped. I want to talk about somebody who I want to say is underhyped, but I wish he got a bit more hype. CJ Stroud. Look, this guy's been absolutely on fire. I think he takes the Texans to beat over this Colts team, which Gardner Minshew, seeing Minshew magic somehow. Don't ask me how. Just always happens. But I think Texans beat the Colts. I think that the Jags make it in because I believe the scenario goes if the Jags win and the Texans win, both of those teams are in. Is that
the Jaguars?
The winner of Colts
the Jaguars
Texans
win and the Jaguars win and they're in, and then Texans Colts is a win and in scenario as well. So if both teams win, whoever respectively wins the Colts Texans game, and if the Jaguars win, both respective teams will make the playoffs. And again, too, I know this is going to be redundant because I feel like we've heard this a billion times the past week, but not too long ago, in fact, a year in the past, Texans Colts was playing for who was going to get the first overall pick. That was a game that we were all like, okay, it's a tank bowl. The Texans blew it at the end. Oh no, they're going to pick 2 now. They're not going to get their choice of quarterback. This is going to be terrible for them. Hint, hint. The way both franchises have just turned things around immediately, and the Colts too, as you mentioned, Davian, you lose Anthony Richardson in week 3, week 4. We all saw it coming too, but he got injured, unfortunately, early on in the year. And for the Colts to be at where they are at this point in the season, where if they win, they're in. And same with the Texans. I think both teams are going to this game with house money, 100%. Yeah. If you win and make the playoffs, that's amazing. If you lose, I know it's going to stink, but in the encapsulation of the year, this was a big-time year and a big-time step for both franchises as a whole.
Yeah. CJ Stroud has had, outside of maybe Cam Newton, and I say maybe because I was not watching football during his rookie year, but CJ Stroud has had a top 2 rookie quarterback season of all time. And him versus Puka Nacua is the toughest rookie of the year race I think we've ever had. Both insanely deserving. 2016 Dak Prescott was really good. I'd say Stroud was slightly better.
Andrew Luck wasn't too bad in 2012. But
yeah. But Stroud has just been otherworldly. I mean, thank you, Stroud, for carrying my fantasy team for most of the year, first of all. But he really has been incredible. I'm going to go with my gut and go with Minshew. I love Minshew.
Yeah.
I've always had. How do you not love him?
It's that mustache, man. How can you not like that mustache?
Yeah. He walked into the game wearing his Wazoo shirt, I'm going to honor Mike Lee with a great performance tonight, I think. But that's a game where you would love to see either team win. You'd love to see either team go on a playoff run. And the futures for both of those franchises hopefully are very bright. We'll see if the Colts, Andrew Luck, Anthony Richardson, and force him out of the league. But hopefully they can put protection around him.
Yeah, I hope so too.
So let's move over now to the NFC, and things are a bit more clear here. There's some seeding implications. Cowboys, Eagles, that 2 seed is up for grabs. You can throw in the Lions as well, but the NFC East is up for grabs. We haven't seen a repeat champion since Theodore. I'm sure you know the stat, and it's been a while since the last time someone has repeated as champions of the NFC East. Tampa Bay as well playing. As long as they win, they're in. They lose, that opens the door for the Falcons Saints game to be a win and in. Tampa, please just beat the Panthers, but put both the Falcons and the Saints. I don't want to.
You don't want to see your team in the playoffs?
I would love to see our team, the Falcons, in the playoffs. I'm done. I know it's the Falcons, so let's be honest here. If the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lose, the Falcons will hear word of that and then proceed to play terrible the rest of the game.
Is the Saints game after the Bucks?
No, I believe they're at the same time. If
Okay.
I had to guess, because that's just how they do Week 18, and that's how I'll give my hats off to them. I like how they do all these important games all at the same time frame, just because it's kind of like the World Cup per se, where everyone in the same division or in the same group plays at the same time. So it's not, you don't have like, okay, well, Tampa Bay wins the 3:30 games, Falcons Saints. Okay, we're just gonna throw the ball around for 3.5 hours, waste everyone's time, and leave. So the Falcons Saints game theoretically still matters. I'd love to see the Falcons get in, but obviously we'll see what happens. Tampa, I like Tampa just a bit more. Just the story is great with Baker Mayfield. For him, I like that a lot. Am I preying on Arthur Smith's downfall? Potentially as well, but who knows what will happen with the Falcons. So if I have Tampa winning, I don't think Tampa's going to lose that game, but if the Falcons make the playoffs, great.
I got the Bucks making it in. Look, Baker Mayfield's been absolutely insane this year. I got the Bucks and the Packers getting that last spot in the wild card.
Yeah, let's just go back to the preseason real quick when we were talking. Everyone was talking about how the NFC South would be the worst division in football, and if I'm not mistaken, 2 of the people on this meeting had the Bucks finishing dead last in that division. Don't write off Baker Mayfield.
Absolutely, we all predicted that it was going to be bad, so at least
it was bad.
Head up high on that. And I mean, I feel like I recall saying that this was the Falcons' division to lose, and it certainly was, as they lost to the Cardinals, the Commanders, the Panthers, every team that was already eliminated. They kind of handed the division on the platter to Tampa Bay, but it is what it is. But yeah, I'll give you hats off to you, Theodore. We'll ignore all the Giants stuff that may or may not have
that never happened
early in the year. I don't think we can talk about the Giants.
I was right.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this real quick on the topic of the Bucks.
Let's see it.
Why is Baker Mayfield not getting any comeback player of the year buzz?
Oh.
You know? This man was replaced, turned into a backup, and now is about to lead a team into the playoffs.
You know what? I think the thing with the comeback player of the year award is normally when someone thinks about that, they're like, oh, some guy had a terrible injury last year.
Well, okay.
Now they're back. So I think I agree with what you're saying. That's definitely valid. Yeah. But I just think that in the context of like everyone's mind, I think it's normally people just think, oh, this player was injured, they were out for the year, or they missed a lot of time and they came back this year and played really well again. So I agree with you, though. Honestly, now that you mentioned that,
I agree with that as well.
That's definitely valid.
Yeah, I think that's completely valid. I mean, I think that the Joe Flacco story is great, but I feel like in some respects it's kind of weird because he was like not on a team. I don't know. Like I love the Joe
he was literally out of the league, though.
Yeah, true.
So,
I mean,
you have some great stories. I think this year, most years though, you kind of have like an indication where you're like, okay, that guy's probably going to win. I think this year there's a good case for a lot of people.
We all know who's going to win, though. I mean, there's only one man who died on the field and came back. And look,
is he actually going to win it though? Because I don't think the voters are. I feel like the voters are always like, look, the voters are going to look at him and be like, he hasn't played. He just hasn't played. Look, if he played even a smidge bit, even the tiniest bit, right? But he just hasn't. Given the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, like, fine, I can see that. He's done a lot of stuff like, fundraising donations with his foundation and whatnot, but I don't know about the comeback player of the year. I just don't see it. I feel like you need a play to be comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
It's kind of
I
word.
feel
really
weird hating on this man,
I do too. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like
it should be one of the.
We need to be honest.
Flacco or Baker. you know?
Absolutely. Here on the podcast, Benchwarmer Sports Podcast, we speak the facts and only the facts. Let's wrap this up real quick. So, do we all have Tampa winning the NFC South?
Yes.
I do have
Taking
Tampa.
care of things. All right, sweet. And then, do we have the Packers? Jordan Love looked great last week versus
did.
Minnesota. I'm kind of buying into the Jordan Love stock right now, which is just skyrocketing at the moment. I think the Packers are going to beat the Bears, although the Bears
Green Bay doesn't
is the
lose
Bears
to
Super
Chicago.
Bowl. If the Bears beat the Packers and finished 8-9, yes, you didn't have your 10-win make the playoff season, but from where the Bears were at the start of the year, I mean, hats off. I think Bears fans should be at least a bit happy with how the season's at. Or maybe they're not because Eberflus might. So
let me just say
who
this.
knows?
I'm going to go back to what I
This
said.
is Justin
Seahawks,
Fields. Everything is on the line for Justin Fields.
Oh,
Exactly.
absolutely. And we saw that last week versus the Falcons. That was, as you said, just like this week. As last week was, this is your tryout essentially to be the quarterback next year, and the Bears will either trade out that number one spot, or the Bears are going to take your replacement. So this is your time.
Or
and as much as I'd like to see him on the Falcons,
or they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and give him a perfect weapon.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it could go three ways, and I honestly am so excited to watch the NFL draft buzz. Now, let me just say before we wrap it up, the Jets have not beaten the Patriots in Foxborough in I forget how many years, but a lot in the regular season. They play. Patriots wins very likely. Then the Seahawks have been bad. They're all but eliminated from the playoffs. Arizona just beat Philly. Arizona has some big wins. Kyler Murray is balling for once in his life. And
that's the first compliment I think Theodore's ever said.
It is
and
the
it was
first
a backhanded compliment.
Clip that.
And he was great in Oklahoma, don't get me wrong. But no, maybe Arizona wins that. That could happen too. If those two things happen and the Giants lose to the Eagles, we are picking third overall. Now, if Washington also somehow beats Dallas, which won't happen, we could be second overall. But the New York Giants have a clear path to a top 3 pick. And that is what I'm watching for, because we need an elite pick, you know? We want
and then
more.
you can waste it on someone else. All right, let's wrap this up. Do we all have the Packers, or do we have someone else taking the 7th seed?
Green Bay.
All right, so there's your consensus. 2 of us have the Packers getting the 7th seed. Davian is riding the Bears for good reason too, and has the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Obviously, the Vikings can get in too, but they're at the back end of those 3 teams for who can get in, provided the teams in front of them lose. But that'll do it for this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Let us know who you guys think is going to clinch. We'll see what happens. Obviously, national championship on Monday as well. Michigan versus Washington. Davian showing his Michigan. I believe that's a puck or a ball, something like that.
Yeah.
Anywho, we hope you enjoyed this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. Have a great rest of your week. We hope you have a great 2024 as well. We'll be sticking around throughout the entire year, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, for Theodore, for Davian, for Carlos, I'm Raffi. Once again, we hope you had a great time listening to this podcast, and we'll see you again soon. See ya.
Peace.